New York Times bestseller, Treason, former Speaker of the House. Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. That was quite an opening.
Well, do you think that, can you give me one award show for nurses, for surgeons that save people's lives, for EMTs, for firemen, policemen, garbage men, construction workers? Where are their award show? I don't see any award shows for them.
Well, I think that's right, but I'll just give you one fact that shows you what a phony Jimmy Kimmel's reasoning was. He talked about 220 countries that don't like us. Those folks in Hollywood make a large part of their profit out of all those countries, and they know that their movies have to sell worldwide. And the fact is, those countries like our movies, and most people in those countries would like to live in the U.S. We don't have a problem of Americans trying to leave to go somewhere else. We have the challenge that all over the world, people want to come to the U.S., admire the U.S., and believe that we are a country that offers great opportunity. And, you know, you can start from there, and the whole rest of that stuff is just baloney.
Do we really have to get lectured? Congratulations to the Iranian that won the award, but do we really need lectures from an Iranian when their country brutalizes women as fourth-class citizens, kills gays and lesbians? All they need to do in Hollywood, go to YouTube and take a look, because the videos are out there. They can look at them chanting "Death to America," wanting to annihilate Israel. I mean, I thought they had a monopoly of compassion for these groups. Apparently not.
No, look, I think you have to start by saying almost nobody in that room is a serious person. They're all actors who act, and they all have a vague, unrealistic sense of the world, and you shouldn't take them seriously. It's like having, you know, a cousin or a brother-in-law who you know is a doofus, and you wouldn't loan him your car, but you know, he comes by and he watches a ball game with you, and you go, yeah, I understand Herbie. These folks are not serious people. They're very often great actors and actresses. They very often produce very entertaining products. I love movies. I've loved movies my whole life. But you shouldn't take them as though they were serious people, because nothing they do about the real world is serious, except they love money.
That is a good point, and they're not making as much as they used to, and nor are people watching the Academy Awards ones like they used to. You actually had a great comment about fake news, warning about what is a new threat. And I love the president in his press conference. I thought it was one of the greatest beatdowns I ever witnessed any president give to the press. And then he backed out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I wanted to get your reaction to it. And why is it so dangerous?
Well, look, I think fake news, which is really based on fake education, is extraordinarily dangerous because it teaches people things that aren't true. What President Trump said goes all the way back to Ronald Reagan in his nationwide speech for Barry Goldwater in 1964, when Reagan said, "It isn't what liberals don't know that's so dangerous, it's what they know that isn't true that's so dangerous." Well, we've now had 50 years of liberals getting more and more out of touch with reality. We have professors who will bully students to force them to learn things that are false. We have entire courses in college that are idiotic. And we have reporters who come up through that system, and they have as much fake education as behind their fake news. It's dangerous for a country. How do you have a serious, you saw this last night, how do you have a serious conversation in a country where your elites think that Iran is okay, while the Iranians actually put paint, "Death to Israel," on the missiles that they're testing? I mean, this is a level of nonsense, and I'm proud of President Trump for having the courage to boil down Ronald Reagan's critique into a very simple phrase. You have fake news, it's based on fake education, it's time we took it head on.
Well said. All right, Mr. Speaker, stay right there. We'll have more of the Speaker. And coming up tonight, we've got a new segment. It's called Holding Washington Accountable. And later, Fox and Friends co-hosts interviewed President Trump earlier today at the White House. They asked him about his big address to Congress tomorrow, about the Oscars and the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Ainsley Earhart will give us a preview. Plus, yesterday, we traveled to Dallas, Texas to sit down with President George W. Bush. And we asked about his brand new book, Portraits of Courage and Defeating ISIS. And welcome back to Hannity. So tomorrow night, President Trump will address a joint session of Congress where he will discuss his vision and agenda for America. But tonight, ahead of that big speech, we are starting a new segment on the program. It's called Holding Washington Accountable. So during my recent sit-down and my interview with the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, he told me President Trump's agenda will be enacted in 200 days legislatively. Watch this. You're in pretty much full agreement with what Donald Trump ran on.
Yes.
And number two, in 200 days, from the legislative side, you are going to be implementing every aspect of that agenda that we talked about.
Yep, and just to
That's
add
a big headline.
And we have cushion in our schedule. If anything slips, because it's really because of Senate issues, we still have time to accommodate all of this stuff in 2017.
To give you 200,
so I even have safety valves. I have cushions built in the schedule to make sure this all gets done in 2017.
Because I believe, as
in
a
case something happens and goes sideways on the Senate.
I'm pretty sure that'll stimulate the economy, get people back to work, and get the economy moving again, which I think we need.
That's what we're hired to do.
All right, Mr. Speaker, we'll see you in 200 days.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you. So maybe before then.
All right, we continue with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. All right, so I gave a pretty hard-hitting monologue on this program and on radio how the president's moving at the speed of Trump, the speed of light. Congress, you know, they said they'd have a plan in the first week. Then it became the spring, the summer, even some saying by the end of the year on Obamacare. And so I went and the Speaker said, nope, it's all legislatively going to be done in 200 days. He said that the health care bill, consensus bill, was being scored by the CBO. Then on my radio show, I interviewed Jim Jordan. And I interviewed Congressman Dave Brat, and I interviewed Congressman Mark Meadows, and they all said they'd never even seen the bill that's being scored. And I'm like, what's going on here? I'm getting nervous. Does that concern you?
No, I think it's a process of people trying to get things done. I think that's the legislative process. Look, I think that there's going to be a lot of turmoil. And I think Paul Ryan thinks that. That's why he said to you, he's built in some cushion. These are huge, huge issues, and people can legitimately disagree about different parts of it. The leadership is going to have a bill to repeal Obamacare and replace it. The leadership's also going to have a tax bill sometime this summer.
Can I just ask one question, though?
These are enormous bills.
How is it possible they haven't shared the bill with the House, but yet it's being scored by CBO, and these Republicans don't know what's in it?
Well, I think it's possible because, frankly, they're going to have to keep playing with the bill in terms of legislative drafting until they can get it scored right. I personally would abolish the Congressional Budget Office. I think it is a very big mistake to allow them to be the arbiters. They were totally wrong on Obamacare. They are dishonest, and they frankly were wrong by such a huge margin. It's absurd to let them be responsible. But I understand what Ryan's trying to do. Ryan wants to find a bill as a baseline, bring it to the conference and say, look, this is a core document. Now, let's argue about amendments. Let's argue about a variety of steps. He's not going to get a single bill through on that scale without amendments. And he knows that. And he knows that, for example, the Freedom Caucus, the conservative wing of the party, is going to be fighting over a couple of issues. He's also got to raise the question, will he get a single Democratic vote? Because if he has to carry the whole thing on the Republican side, he has a relatively narrow margin for error.
All right, I'm impatient by nature. I have had a sense of urgency since I came out of the womb. I like to get things done faster. Am I being too impatient and expecting? Like, I was a little upset they didn't have a replacement consensus bill already done after Election Day. And it seems that this is going a little too slow for me. Is 200 days about right legislatively? You got a lot done in 100 days.